So let's talk rendering for a little bit. Rendering is kind of a necessary evil, and no matter what I've tried, it's still painful and still slow. At least in Adobe After Effects and in Luxedo. I haven't tried it in DaVinci Resolve yet. Maybe it's a little bit better, but I suspect it's a common problem with video editing in general, that rendering is slow and often error prone. So I thought I'd just throw out a few tips that can help with improving the rendering in the Luxedo, because I'm also seeing a lot of people are struggling with that as they're getting their Christmas shows together. So just some ideas to think about. Some of these I haven't actually tried yet, but they should work fine. It should still improve the rendering time. So one quick comment too. Basically, what the rendering is doing is it's taking all of these images and these videos and these layers and combining it all into a video file that can play on the projector. And it's a necessary part. It has to go through that process. And there's two areas where you see rendering affect you. One is in real time, like as you're developing your show and you have this preview mode down here. And then there's the time it takes to do the final rendering and final packaging up of the video. And both, you kind of almost have to set your expectations that sometimes it is going to be tough and sometimes it is going to be slow. And just for comparison, if I try to run this project in Adobe without doing any crazy pre-compositions or anything like that, it's still sluggish in this preview mode. So these are mitigation and compensation things that you can do, but you also have to have reasonable expectations of it. So one thing that's helpful too is to realize in Luxedo what things contribute to longer rendering time. And there's a few things, as I understand it, that can lead to longer rendering time. One is length of show. The longer the show, the longer it's going to take to render. My shows tend to be less than 6-7 minutes at most for many of my shows. Beyond that, one thing you could consider is having them as separate projects and just scheduling them to run after each other. Okay. So length of the project. The next thing that contributes to it is the number of layers. So while it's nice to crank out these layers to help with organization, that's a balancing act with the more layers you have, the more it's going to take to render. Third thing is the size of the images and the videos. And the videos made sense to me. If you have a big, massive video, I can see how that's going to slow everything down. But also large images do too. So keep that in mind. And the last thing that contributes, and this is not a comprehensive list, there's probably a lot of things, but these are the ones that came to mind. The last thing that's going to affect rendering time is the skewing feature. Skewing is great so that you can adjust for perspective to give the illusion that it's the house itself rather than just your house being a big projector screen. So stick with simple, that's just two-dimensional when you can. But skewing to adjust your perspective also does quite a bit. That slows things down too. So some things that you can do to help with this, I've already mentioned a couple. With the skewing, you can try to do simple as much as possible, skewing only when necessary. You can also resize or prep videos and pictures before you go to upload them into Luxedo. So with pictures, I'll often do that inside something like Canva, but there are tons and tons of free editing tools out there. And so if you have a massive photo or a picture, then you can reduce that down in size. And you don't really need high definition for projection mapping, because the projector itself can only handle a certain amount of resolution anyway. So if you reduce those pictures down, it's not going to significantly affect your show, I don't think. So you can use a free photo editing tool. For video editing, I'll use Capwing. I just use their freemium one. And so there's a couple of ways in here that I can reduce my video size. One is, like, these Atmos files are awesome, but they're also really big. And so I'll try to trim it. I've got 3 minutes, 40 seconds of content here. I will trim and get just the sections that I want out of this. And then you can also play with the export settings in here to try to get a smaller video file. Okay, so you can play with that. That'd be the next step, is to prep videos and pictures, get them just the right size for what you're trying to accomplish in the show. The last thing that you can think about, I'm on Adobe, not Luxedo. The last thing that you can do, and this is the one I haven't really tried yet, is to break up your project into smaller chunks and render those individually. So a couple ways that you could do that, for example, would be if you have different scenes. You know, for our main show, we have a scene at the beginning with snowmen, and then we have a scene, Santa's workshop. We have a scene that's a gingerbread house. You could create each of those scenes individually, render them out, download the MP4, which is one of the options that you'll have here when you right under render, and do that for if you have 4 scenes, you'll have 4 MP4 files. You can then upload those MP4s back into Luxedo and then add them to a master project and render that out. I haven't tried this, but it makes sense to me that that would work. If you've already got your project built and you're not building it from scratch, they're like, oh, okay, that really doesn't help me because I've already done this. No problem. You can clone these projects. So clone it, give it a new name, clone as many of them as you have scenes, and then trim it down to size. Another way you could break this up too would be, since skewing is a significant part of the render time, and you do have to adjust for the angles and perspectives of your house, then you could do just the facade as one project, render that out to MB4, and then re-upload it into Luxedo, and then add the other effects and videos and transitions to it. Okay. So those are some quick tips off the top of my head. If I think of any others, then I might do another video. If there's ones that you found that are useful that I haven't covered, then go ahead and comment on the YouTube video, or I'm going to post this in the Luxedo Facebook group. So if you found some things that can help too, then by all means, let's share with each other so we can try to make this as efficient as possible. Thanks.